Lagos is a city of vibrant culture and historical significance. Its streets tell tales of struggles, resilience and transformation from the fight for independence to its creation as a state and its rebirth after the Civil War. Lagos has always been at the heart of Nigerians' journey. This is the story of Lagos, the cradle of Nigerians' history.
One of the important episodes in Lagos at the dawn of the 20th century was the Eleko affairs, whose origin can be traced to Treaty of Cession in 1861 on the one hand, and the dynamics of Lagos politics in the other. As stated earlier, with the cession of Lagos to the British, the administration usurped the powers held by the Oba, while leaving him to use the title King only in its African signification. The Oba's position was nothing more than power without authority.
Some of the key figures that fought for the struggle of Nigeria's independence were Oba Oyekon, Oba Eleko Ishugbayi, Oba Ibikunle Akitoye, Oba Sanusi Ulusi, Alimotu Pelewura, James Coleman.
Alimotu Pelewura was a legendary market leader, activist, and champion of women's rights in colonial Lagos. Born in the late 19th century, Pelewura rose to prominence as a fearless advocate for market women who were the backbone of the city's economy. She opposed the colonial government's introduction of price controls, taxation, and restriction on local trade, and all of this affected the indigenous traders. Her most famous battle was against the British colonial administration attempts to impose a direct sales tax in the 1940s. Rallying thousands of market women, she led massive protests and public demonstrations, directly confronting colonial officials. Activism alongside figures like Fumilayo Ransom Kuti helped shape early Nigerian's feminist movement and inspired future generations of women leaders. Pelewura remains a powerful figure until her death in 1951, leaving behind a legacy of resistance and empowerment in Nigerian commercial and political history. Oba Ishugbayi Eleko, the 43rd Oba of Lagos, reigned from 1901 to 1925 and remains one of the most politically significant traditional rulers in Nigeria's colonial history. His tenure was marked by a fierce resistance against British colonial policy that sought to undermine the economic and political autonomy of Lagos. Born into a royal lineage, Ishugbayi Eleko ascended the throne during a time when the British had firmly established themselves as the dominant power in Lagos, turning it into a colonial protectorate. However, rather than becoming the puppet ruler, he consistently opposed policies that were detrimental to his people. His most notable confrontation with the colonial government arose over the imposition of direct taxation and control over land, which him and his chiefs viewed as a violation on indigenous sovereignty. His resistance culminated into the infamous water rate crisis of the early 1920s, when Lagosians led by Eleko and other nationalist figures like Obas protested against unfair levies. The colonial government, viewing him as a threat to their authority, disposed and exiled him to Oyo in 1925, replacing it with a more compliant ruler. However, the people of Lagos did not forget the rightful king. Massive protests, legal battle, and petitions following, culminating in a landmark appeal to the Privy Council in London, which ruled in Eleko's favor. In 1931, he was reinstated, though his return was short-lived as he passed away later that year. His defiance against colonial rule made him a symbol of resistance and paved the way for nationalist movement in Nigeria. Oba Ibikunle Akitoye too was installed as the Oba of Lagos in 1925, following the exile of Oba Ishugbayi Eleko. His reign was brief and highly controversial, as he was seen as a ruler handpicked by the British to suppress the growing nationalist movement in Lagos. A member of the Akitoye royal lineage, he ascended the throne under colonial supervision, but his legitimacy was widely contested. His reign was marked by continued struggles between the traditional authority and British colonial rule. The people of Lagos, led by nationalist figures like Obas continued to demand the return of Ishugbayi Eleko, arguing that his removal was illegitimate. As public protest and political agitation grew, the British found it increasingly difficult to maintain their hold over Lagos through Akintoye. In 1928, it was removed in favor of Oba Sanusi Olusi as the colonial government tried to stabilize the tense political climate. Though his reign was short, His time on the throne reflected a critical moment in Lagos history when traditional kingship was caught between colonial imposition and the rising tide of nationalism. Oba Sanusi Olusi was the 44th Oba of Lagos, reigning from 1928 to 1931, during one of the most politically turbulent periods in Lagos history. He was installed by the British after the exile of Oba Isugbayi Eleko, a move that made him widely unpopular among nationalist leaders and the indigenous elite. Coming from a respected royal lineage, Olusi had been involved in Lagos politics before his ascension. However, his reign was overshadowed by the continued agitation for Eleko's return. Many Lagosians viewed him as a colonial figurehead, and opposition to his rule was intense. His short reign saw increased nationalist activities, particularly from figures like Abat Macaulay, who mobilized Lagosians to demand the restoration of the deposed king. Eventually, when the Privy Council in London ruled in favor of Eleko, Olusi was removed from the throne in 1931. Despite his controversial rule, he remained an influential leader until his death in 1935. His tenure is a reminder of the deep conflict between the colonial authorities and the indigenous governors during the early 20th century.
In the late 19th century, Lagos was a thriving coastal town and a key colonial administrative center under the British rule. However, by the early 20th century, its citizens began to demand political representation. Herbert Macaulay, a Lagosian, emerged as the father of Nigerian nationalism. Through his relentless activism, he inspired movements that challenged colonial policies and demanded self-governance. Nigeria's first political party was founded in Lagos in the year 1923 by late Herbert Macaulay. By the 1940s, Lagos had become the epicenter of the independence struggle. Leaders like Nnamdi Ezeki, Obafemi Awolowo, and Anthony Enahoro used Lagos as a base to advocate for self-rule.
I wish to make our position plain beyond any matter of doubt as regards the African continent. We in Nigeria appreciate the advantages which the size of our country and of its population give us, but we have absolutely no aggressive intentions. We shall never impose ourselves upon any other country and shall treat every African territory, big or small, as our equal, because we honestly feel that it is only on that basis of equality that peace can be maintained in our continent.
On October 1, 1960, Nigeria gained independence. Lagos, as the capital, stood as a beacon of hope, representing the unity and aspirations of a new nation.
After independence, Nigeria grappled with political and ethnic tensions. In 1967, under General Yakubu Gowon's leadership, the nation was divided into 12 states. Lagos was declared a separate state, distinct from the western region.
This decision ensured Lagos could focus on its growing economic and administrative importance. As the federal capital, Lagos represented the unity of Nigeria's diverse cultures and ethnicities. The creation of Lagos State marked a turning point. It allowed the city to operate independently and address its unique challenges as Nigeria's most significant urban center.
My name is Mr. Olaniyo Ayodele.
In your view, what makes Lagos unique compared to other Nigerian cities in terms of historical significance?
We cannot compare Lagos to so many other cities of Nigeria, particularly when you look at the historical background from the slave trade era. From the slave trade era, Lagos has been playing a very significant role, though this was a period when trade in slaves was more prominent or more pronounced than trade in commodities and other things. And that made, because the slaves have been transported all the way from Lagos to Europe, to Brazil, for menial jobs, I mean, farm work in the plantations and whatever. The period makes Lagos a very, very important point for education, because after the trade in commodities came Christianity, and Christianity came with education. Most of the missionaries that came to Lagos, from Lagos, they dispersed to the hinterland, is it Jebu land? That's why you have all these missionary schools. And even when you look at most of the nationalists that fought for the independence, most of them are either from Ijebu or from Lagos here. Talk about Macaulay, talk about Awolowo, talk about the Da Costas. Even when you look at the environment of Lagos now, the settlements after the slave trade, we have the slave quarters in the island there, Lafia Jia. You have all the slave quarters where people that were brought back from Sierra Leone settled and whatever. So that makes Lagos a very important point.
How did Lagosians react to the creation of Lagos State in 1967?
There was reaction because Lagos has been an entity long before 1967. If you remember vividly, during the colonial administration, we have three regions: the northern region, the southern region, and the western region. And I can authoritatively tell you that this compound is one of the administrative headquarters of the colonial masters. This building accommodates the colonial masters, where even after the colonial era, where people like Azikwe and the like ruled. If I take you around now, I can show you the office where Nnamdi Azikiwe was. I mean, that's the first, what do we call it then? Where he administered Nigeria. So at the same time, we have the colonial administrative headquarters in Calabar, and then we have in the north. So that prepares Lagos State too for the creation of Lagos, because, you know, as at that time, the colonialists believed that Lagos has already opened up. You can compare Lagos to somewhere like Cape Town, where the whites settled in those days before they penetrated into South Africa. When the creation of Lagos came in 1967, that was the period when the Biafran War was subsiding. The Biafran War started in 1966-67, and then immediately after the Biafran War subsided, the one took over, and that was why the one now look at it and say, okay, we have to create 12 states in Nigeria. Remember, it was in 1967 that we have 12 states, and Lagos made the capital of Nigeria. So it was a very welcome development that Lagos State is being created and it's also being made the capital of Nigeria. And what prompted it being used as the capital of Nigeria is not far-fetched, because it has been at the administrative headquarters of the colonial masters, coupled with the commercial nerve center of the country. We have ports, we have everything, so that makes it a very welcome development.
What role did Lagos play as a hub for political and nationalist activities during the struggle for independence?
I think we have said it too. The role Lagos played as a commercial center, as a political center, even the nationalist struggle started mostly in Lagos. Why do we have the statue of Herbert Macaulay there, just at CMS there? Because this is where the struggle started. People like Fumilayo Ransome-Kuti had her own in Ogun State, and even as at when she had it in Ogun State, Abeokuta was under the colony of Lagos. You understand me? It was under Western region, so to say. Under Western region. So Lagos State was not there. I mean, was not created as at that time. But we have Abeokuta under Western region. Do you understand me? So the nationalist activities during the struggle for colonial independence played a very, very important role.
What role did the Colonial Secretariat play in managing political activities and movements during the colonial era?
Here being the Colonial Secretariat, we believe that it attracted activities around the center of Lagos, and it gave Lagos that impetus to develop fast. Even as this place was the first federal secretariat in Lagos, we have in 1976 the second federal secretariat, which is at Ikoyi. That's Ikoyi. That's around Alagna area. That's where you have the second federal secretariat. This is the first federal secretariat. That's the second federal secretariat, which was created in 1976.
How did Lagos rebuild and expand its infrastructure after the Civil War?
Well, the Civil War of 1967. Well, Lagos was rebuilt. Lagos was not even really affected during the war. Yes, Lagos was not really affected. Activities were going on in Lagos. Because Lagos is under Western region. It was under Western region before the creation of Lagos in 1967. So the Civil War did not really affect Lagos because the Civil War, the only way I can say it affects Lagos is that most of the Westerners that were in the north, that were affected by the attacks of the Northerners, ran back home and gave Lagos that leverage to have more population that came back home and rebuild their own states. And just, okay, in your own time now, if you remember this, was it not during this fashionable period when there was mass deportation of foreigners from Lagos? Did you ever hear that during fashionable period there was mass deportation of people from Lagos to other regions just because they believe that Lagos is being congested, large concentration because of the commercial activity? So that was the starting point that I can say that made Lagos to be rebuilt and expand on commercial growth, because Lagos being the capital of Nigeria gave it that leverage for people, for concentration of politicians and government officials. As of before, we have Abuja, we have this federal secretariat, we have all this surrounding. If you go on this road, you have what we call the State House, which houses the president, that residential quarters of the president. Then at the other side, we have the Northern Barracks, where the military presidents are. We have the one at Obalende. If you look at all these surroundings, they are federal government administrative headquarters that house. Even when you look at just behind us here, we have the Defense building there. Behind this building, we have Ministry of Finance. Then along the road, we have King's College, we have the Federal High Court. So there's a large concentration of government administrative structures that gave Lagos that level to be rebuilt and expanded after the war.
After the Nigerian Civil War ended in 1970, Lagos became a hub of recovery and growth. People from across the country flocked to the city, making it a melting pot of cultures. The ports of Lagos became critical for trade while industries flourished to support Nigeria's rebuilding efforts. Lagos transformed into a modern metropolis, embodying the resilience of its people. Today, Lagos is more than a city. It's a symbol of Nigeria's resilience and determination. Its vibrant culture, thriving economy, and unyielding spirit continue to inspire the nation and the world. Lagos, yesterday, today, forever the heartbeat of Nigeria. This documentary was created to celebrate Lagos' pivotal role in Nigeria's history. It is a tribute to the people who shaped its journey and those who continue to drive its progress.